But we really are world-class martial artists. And that's the thing that I wanted to do with Taekwondo and Hapkido. I wanted to be the best. I wanted to be world-class at something. I didn't want to step in the ring necessarily because I like my face, and I want my nose. My nose has already been put all over the place anyway, right? But I wanted to be ready and I wanted to excel because being in the martial arts, mind, body, spirit, it's so good for you. And it's so good. You can't hide from yourself when you're standing alone on the mat.
Welcome, everyone. Hi, I'm Keith Vitali, and welcome to Sidekick Podcast. I'm so excited about this episode because I have a guest on today who's one of my best friends, just a great guy, a phenomenal martial artist. Believe me, one of the best ever. He's a writer, producer, director, and of course, he's a big film star. He starred in a lot of films like No Retreat, Surrender 2 and 3, King of the Kickboxer, and so many more. Say hi to my good friend, Loren Avedon. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Keith, my blood brother. It's always a pleasure, sir. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm really excited about what you're doing.
Oh, good, good. I'm so excited about it. And you look good. You don't
Well,
age.
so I guess that oxygen tent that I bought from Michael Jackson's estate is working.
And for those tuning in, they probably don't know that you and I co-starred in a film together called No Retreat, Surrender 3. After the film, we remained friends, and I would fly down to come see you and visit you in Clearwater, where you live in Florida.
Yes,
And
sir.
we would have the best time. We go to the beach, go out and eat. Did you
Absolutely.
enjoy those times as much as me?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I miss you. So I hope it kind of put a kibosh on that. But yeah, it's like we pick it up like we never, you know, didn't talk
Yeah.
for a while, but because life takes you in different directions. And it's just wonderful to know that my blood brother is really my blood brother. No Retreat, No Surrender 3, Blood Brothers was a really epic film for me because you were such a hero of mine when I was going up in the ranks. I was like, I want to be able to do what that dude does. And he is such a badass. So for people who don't understand or know, Mr. Vitali, Master Vitali, had several karate schools and was number one in the nation for 3 years. I'm not going to say the years because we don't need to know that.
Well, thank you so those kind words. That's really nice.
Yes.
And we're going to free will a little bit today. We're going to go all over, and I love that. There's a bunch of topics, but I still think fans want to know. Like they always ask me how I got started in martial arts. Just give me a synopsis. Did you just walk into a karate school one day and say, "Oh, or what? You saw Bruce Lee in a film? Well, why did you start martial arts?"
Well, I'll tell you, Keith, ever since I saw Bruce Lee, I snuck into a theater in England when I was about 10 years old. I said, I want to be like that guy. And he's so confident, cool, calm, collected. And I didn't really have any male role models growing up, so I was looking around at schools and I knew some guys from high school that were going to Chun Chung Taekwondo because it was only like Kung Fu Sansu, some Kempo karate, Shotokan, stuff like that. I went and looked at these things and I'm like, this isn't for me. So I walked into Jun Chung. Actually, before I walked into Jun Chung, I found, I watched this guy do a flying sidekick, fold the bag in half, and it went swung and hit the ceiling. I'm like, I want to learn how to do that. So I walked
Wow.
in, took a trial class with Simon Ree that evening. And basically, I thought I was in shape. I was a distance runner, et cetera. And I was just completely dead after 40 minutes. And 15 of that was stretching. I remember trying to pull my zipper down on the old kind of gray sweatsuit that they only had back then. And Simon somehow was behind me and zipping it back up. So, so I just fell in love with it. And so I had really some really good people around. And I didn't know that that was kind of a hub for really excellent martial artists. So that's
No,
how I fell in love.
get this. Just the other day, talking about being a small world, I was texting Simon Lee just the other day. And I was reminding him that back in the old days when I was fighting at a national karate tournament, he was there. And I wanted to warm up before I went in the ring, and he agreed to warm up with me. And I'm telling you something, he's fantastic. My first impression was, I'm glad I'm not fighting this guy today. This guy is great. So I can see where you got your fundamental, your basics, and that just makes sense. That just makes so much sense. But I love the Ray brothers. They're just phenomenal people. And so you come from great stock. It's important to come from great stock because we're going to talk a little bit today about your film work. You come from the greatest stock ever. The I think the king of the best fighters of all time and Hong Kong fighters, the what they call the golden age fighters and directors and stunt coordinators. You're a mix of all of those people, which is phenomenal. Phenomenal. What a great legacy you have. I watched your podcast that you were a guest on the Scott Atkins podcast. First of all, you did a phenomenal job. Scott is so wonderful. He's not just a martial arts star, he's a film star, one of the biggest in the whole world.
Yeah.
And what I loved to see how giddy he was to have you on his show. He truly was inspired by you. He would truly looked up to you. You motivated him to get into martial arts, and then you motivated him and inspired him to get into the film world. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, I was totally blown away with that.
Thank you, Keith. And me too. We have inspired so many people to go down the same road as we did. But, you were already a champion. They always want to hire champions, right? And so the thing about it is I just happened to be at the right place at the right time. Had studied acting and such. And the stock that I came from, yes, there were so many martial artists that came from all over the world. And this was an old school Taekwondo school. I mean, it was
Right.
no joke. And having the Reed brothers and Master Chung, and then we'd have all of these guest instructors. I remember Superfoot would use me as his demo dummy. I was he combed my hair with his toes, that stuff, the hook kick. And he knew he could sidekick me and not, I'm not going to flinch. And then the other thing is I was on the demo team. I used to do what's a Hapkido with Master Ree, Philip Ree, and I was his demo dummy for the cane because he knew he could throw me around and he could whack me and do whatever he wanted to do, and I was going to get right back up. So we both come from good stock. You probably have, you are one of the shall we say greatest from that era. And I mean, all I can say is I don't know who trained you. It doesn't really matter right now. You probably will get into that. But all I can say is that when we met, I was just so like starstruck. And that's the thing about like Scott Adkins, for example. I met him in Birmingham, England, but he was only 12, and I signed his autograph
Wow.
as
Wow.
you heard on the podcast, and said,
Yeah.
he said, "Thank you so much," and I said, "You got it, man," and that was it. So it's really wonderful to know that we both have inspired so many people to follow their dreams.
Well, that's so good. I never told you this. I can't believe I forgot to. Maybe I did. I forgot that I'd mentioned it before. But back in the old days, Keith Strandberg and I, and Michael DePasquale, and you've been in, had Michael DePasquale in a couple of your films. We started a film action camp in North Carolina, Storm King. I'm sorry, in New York. And we had it for about 10, 12 years. And we would have people fly in from all over the world and they'd learn how to break into films. One of the people that flew in was a guy named Scott Atkins. And he came in and he started demonstrating his technique. And I had two immediate emotions. One is I was totally overwhelmed. I was witnessing the perfect martial artist. He was charming, good looking, built like Superman, could do every technique. And then my second emotion was I was depressed because he was the perfect martial artist. He was so good that I literally went, can I compete with somebody like that? And then yet he told you, and I have echoed the same thoughts over and over. We think you have some of the best techniques and kicks in all the martial arts. Now, think about this. Now, I'm talking about, I have worked with, I'm no chopped liver here. I've worked with Jackie Chan. I've worked with Yuan Bao and Sammo Hung. And I'm not, these are the best of the best. Richard Norton is phenomenal. You know how good Gary Lee and Darren Chevalier are? Phenomenal. John Barrett. These are the top of the martial arts world.
Yeah.
And I put you up there because your techniques, your kicks are so long, your legs are so long. And again, I'm echoing what Scott said. You have power, but they're aesthetically beautiful. And guess what? They translate to film. And not all martial arts techniques translate to films, do they? We got a
No,
good friend, and John Wilson's one of my favorite guys and favorite friends. And he's a great martial artist, but he likes to keep his realistic. The sidekick round, and it's more realistic. It's not as aesthetically as beautiful as your techniques are. I mean, you're up there. You put Bruce Lee and your techniques up there. There's no difference in technique. And again, believe me, I'm a kicker and I don't come close.
yeah,
How I
you
know?
are.
Because no, 2 years ago, we were at the beach. I went to come visit you. We're at the beach right before COVID. And we got engaged. We took some snapshots. I'm gonna put some on this episode too. And I'm sitting there looking at you going, how in the hell are you still doing that? You were kicking up in the air and throwing side kicks and round kicks. And I was like stumbling and mumbling and going,
Oh, we're good.
well, no, but again, I honestly think I'm hoping one of my goals of this, not just to highlight your life and talk with a good friend of mine. I have no clue who's going to watch this podcast. I'm hoping it's going to go all over the world, and because we got friends all over the world that loved our film together, No Retreat, Surrender 3. But I hope there's a producer, director out there that's watching this and go, and Lauren still looks good. I'm telling you guys, he can still kick. And girls, put him on your show. Have a movie. Hire this guy. I mean, it's phenomenal. One of the things I wanted to touch on, and we'll go on a lot of different topics. One of the things I loved is that, get this, you and I have something in common that you're probably not even aware of. My first starring film was Revenge of the Ninja. Now, I was fortunate, blessed to be at the right place, right time. MGM picked it up and put it in every theater in the United States. So my first starring role got a theatrical release. Your first starring role was No Retreat, Surrender 2. And tell me about that. First of all, how did you got a theatrical release for that, didn't you?
Yes, we had a theatrical release, and when we do a little show and tell later, I can show you the full page ad that was in the LA Times.
Wow.
And I went and saw it. Well, not full page, sorry, about one third of the page or quarter. Anyway, but I did see it in other publications, full page. But basically, I remember going to the Pacific Theater on Hollywood Boulevard to watch myself. And I waited until everybody went in and did all that kind of stuff and found a seat in the back. And I was just sitting there because I've never seen myself, on film, really. They didn't show us
Right.
didn't show us the dailies on purpose, right? And I was just gripping the seat the whole time and just sweating, and watching myself. And I was amazed and surprised at the reaction. But the fact is that those films still hold up today. And I have a Black Belt magazine from 1993 that has only Bruce Lee above the film that we did. Ours is number 4, and then King of the Kickboxers and No Retreat, No Surrender 2, Raging Thunder in Black Belt
Wow.
magazine. So only surpassed by Bruce Lee. That's amazing, really. And it's all about,
Wow.
yeah, yes, I've got it. I'm gonna whip it out and show you. I can scan it in and you can put it up however you want so you have better, quality. But the thing about it is that we are I really believe that it's thanks to our training and technique and being authentic martial artists. A lot of people today, they fudge a lot of stuff, right? Which is okay. But we really are world class martial artists. And that's the thing that I wanted to do with Taekwondo and Hapkido. I wanted to be the best. I wanted to be world class at something. I didn't want to step in the ring necessarily because I like my face, and I want my nose. And my nose has already been put all over the place anyway, right? But I wanted to be ready and I wanted to excel because being in the martial arts, mind, body, spirit, it's so good for you. And it's so good. You can't hide from yourself when you're standing alone on the mat. And, people are going to give it to you. And so I prided myself, even as a junior, in going on Sunday to be with the fighters that were training to go to tournaments. And then even doing that with Olympic team members and wannabes in Taekwondo later on in the Valley in Inglewood with JJ Perry, who was an Olympic alternate in 1988. And I'll be showing you some pictures. But the thing is that, it was home for me. It was church. I remember Master Chung telling me Lauren, get out of here. You always at the studio. You have the windows here and I'm watching. I can't get enough of. And then so I think what I needed is ultimately I needed those male role models. I needed though somebody to show me how to walk and talk and be a man in this world because you have that difference and then work on myself because that's what martial arts does is it pushes you beyond levels that you thought you couldn't go. And then I'm so lucky that I was at the school and picked up the phone and I had studied acting on a lark because it bothered me that I could yell at, 75, black belts and fight with all of them. But I'm standing there and shaking like this, trying to read some, words on
Right,
quick
right,
paper. It bothered me. So I was always all about what can I do to be better, to better myself and spiritually, it's something that we just love and because you get out of yourself when you're in the dojo or in the dojo, right? You have to, and there's always someone there that's better than you. And I had such great
right,
examples and I wanted to be better than them. And of course, they are still great. They're amazing. And then I trained with so many other martial artists and fighters because that's really what was important to me
right.
is to be able to hang with these guys at that level.
What kind of acting classes were you doing? Which school was it, Meisner, or who are you learning
Yes,
from?
it was, the Stanislavski Meisner technique, which they teach at
Gotcha.
the Actors Studio in New York, and this, gentleman, Alan Landers, his real name is Alan Levine. He's, long gone now, but, I got introduced to it by a guy that I met trying to pay my doctor bill by working on his house. He said, "You should come to my acting class." So I went, shaking like a leaf.
Yeah.
I said, "This is something that's gonna help me improve." But the Stanislavski Meisner technique, it focuses on you being it, never acting, and
Right,
personalizing and
right.
substituting and, all of the inner monologue and all this stuff. So I was very lucky that I dealt with the pros, and I had a guy who, was able to school me. So for about 2.5 years before that phone call, I had been taking acting classes and then
Yeah.
rehearsing the other things and exercises for 2.5 years. So I'm very lucky for that. And I've been in commercials. I've done stunt work as I call the studios to do whatever. And
Right.
that's how I got my A card is in the Pepsi Slice commercial, which they chose me, Mark Hicks, and then the stunt coordinator to be in the commercial and the Castro twins and one other female to opposite that. So it's amazing. It really is.
Well, see, you were prepared. I later I studied in LA with Jeff Goldblum, and it was phenomenal. But I wish I had studied a year or two before my first film, Revenge of the Ninja. I mean, you know, I was the kind of actor. I made the transition from a fighter to acting, and as a fighter, we discussed this before. As a fighter, you hold everything in. You show no emotion.
Yep.
Somebody hits you with a kick in the ring, you don't go, "Oh, that hurts." You don't show it facially. You don't show it with your body. It's the total opposite for film, isn't it? For
That's
film, you got to
yeah.
project with your face. You got to show with you got to sell it. It's a whole different world. And I know after my first one, I was like, oh, I was kind of depressed. I was always 100% sure of my physical ability, my kicks and techniques. And so I was always happy to see that on film. But when it came to my acting, I was like, oh, please hurry up and get through this. And I know Chuck Norris called me up after Revenge, and he echoed the same thing. He said, "Keith, it's hard for us because we're fighters and we hold everything in. And when that director says action, we go right back to being a fighter." And it just took him some time. It took me some time, but you jumped right out of the gate. So much so. What did Variety say about you or write about you after No Retreat Surrender 2?
The blonde haired, blue eyed Bruce Lee.
We say, does it get any better than that? I mean,
That gets
was she
pretty
going
bad.
to sleep
Where
at
do you
night?
go?
If I went to sleep tonight and I said, I want something written about me that's the best, I mean, that was it. You had it already. I mean, and believe me, they never said those words about me ever, but that was fine. I knew what I was. I was a fighter making the transition into acting. I was doing the best I could. And my first film, Revenge of the Ninja, even though, I was the kind of actor at that time that wasn't classically trained. And I would wait for, get this, for the actor to finish their lines because I would know the last couple words, and then I jump in, and that's not acting. You're not listening. You got to really listen. So, but I googled yesterday, getting ready for this interview, and I just said, I Googled, I said, who are the top 20 martial arts stars in the world? Your name popped up.
Wow.
Top 20 in the world of all time.
Wow.
My name wasn't in there. I'm not sure if I could have said, give me the top 100 if I'd have been in the top 100, but that's a blessing to be in the top 20. But on my, I was kind of proud of when I said, give me the top 20 movies of all time. I was in the movie Wheels on Mills with Jackie Chan, and they consider that one of the top 20. So we're both doing very well. We're very blessed, so that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
And
Yes, sir.
so how do you get your role for No Retreat, Surrender 2? Because we're going to talk a little bit about breaking into films later and giving advice to aspiring martial artists that want to break into films. So here you are, you're at your school. So exactly what happened to get you your first role? Starring
Well,
one.
Roy Harin, who, you know the name, he was in LA looking for a replacement for Kurt McKinney and Jean Claude Van Damme because Jean Claude had basically said, I'm not going, and so on and so forth, because I guess he had made Bloodsport. And then Kurt, he was on a soap opera and was making a considerable salary. So basically, I got the phone call from Roy Haran and he said what he was looking for. I said, well, you're talking to him. I went to Altadena. But first, he tried to cancel the audition because of some thing. And I said, no, that's the only day I can come and time I can come because I just knew I had to get in there. So
Right.
a week later, I'm on a plane to Thailand. And basically, I didn't know who Yun Kwai was. I didn't know who any of these people were. And actually, that worked to my advantage. And thank God for the martial arts and for technique, because you've worked with these Hong Kong stars. They choreograph right on the spot. And some of the
On the
problems,
spot.
exactly. There's no prevising, there's no this or that like they do these days. The thing is that you got to be able to pick it up. And then the problem we would have is that here are, there's a 5-man stunt team and a stunt coordinator that can double anybody. And here they're doing their choreography in the space. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, my arms are about a foot longer than legs. So yes, is that I was able to adjust. I didn't even have the job until I got to Bangkok. And then at midnight, we're walking down the hall. Yun Kuei's coming the other way. And Roy Haran has me do some reactions. And he says, okay. And then next day, we do a screen test in the parking lot of the Ambassador Hotel in Bangkok with me and Matthias because he wants to see how we look on film. Thank God, the camera is nice to me. And that began the journey. And it was 3.5 months of really rigorous hell and cover your, you know what. So it
Yeah.
was amazing, really.
Let me ask you this. I read this. You could never believe half the things you read, but I read where Kurt McKinney, a friend of mine, and John Van Damme, of course, they didn't want to do No Retreat 2. They did one. Keith Strandberg wrote that script, right? So he wrote all three of them. They didn't want to do two because they were worried about going to the Cambodian border and Thailand, kind of worried that way. Was it dangerous at all for you, or is
Oh,
that
very,
just hype?
very, very, very dangerous. It was not anything to be messed with because there's where we were shooting mostly was out in the countryside. We did do some shots, elsewhere. But the first film, I was so green, I was so hungry. I just wanted to do the best I can. And it actually pumped up the Chinese seeing me wanting to do just about everything that I could, stunt wise
Right,
and
right,
otherwise. And then the reactions and so on and so forth. And you know how they do it. They'll do 20 takes of an 8 to 20, movement set and make you do it
right.
again and again and again and again. Whereas when it comes to the acting, it's okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay, did we get it great? In other words, pass the meat in front of the camera. Let's get an image, move on. Because the real deal is the fights.
Right, right, right.
No, no, no. What I was going to say is Lucas Lowe, didn't want us to do the end fight scene where we reconcile on Blood Brothers, on No Retreat, No Surrender 3 Blood Brothers. And I said, Lucas, this is a film about brothers. We have to reconcile. So he would only give us one take. Now, in Thailand, and with, for example, Kurt McKinney and Jean Claude, I can understand their, reluctance, but I was game. I had written my will. I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
ready. I
That's
was,
tough.
I just made sure that my little pittance of money that I got for that film, I would call my mother to make sure that, because she was worried about me as well, make sure that they had made the deposit, for example. So at least my mom would have had enough money to have me shipped back
Right.
to America to be put in the ground or whatever. But that's how it was. I really got that feeling there that, that they didn't really care at the end of the movie. Maybe they're just going to shoot me in the head. And the American crew walked off after about 6 weeks because they wouldn't go in the Klong water or do what the Chinese cameramen would. And we were asked to do some hairy things. I mean, I slid down that wire from a tree to the guard
Right.
tower. And what's holding me up? Well, it's a wire attached to the back of a Nissan pickup truck that would drive forward to pull me back up and then go in reverse to
Yeah.
slide me back down. Now, of course, I'm wired and all that stuff. So they were very. I mean, I just pushed it because I really wanted to, do everything that I could. And the stuntman actually came to me and said, "Lauren, let us done work. We know work. So please, you take a rest." And I said, "Guys, I want to learn as much as I can. Let the editors make
Right.
the
Right.
choice, and I want the audience to see me as much as possible." But I was game for anything, and it was pretty hairy a lot of times. So they had to shut down for a couple days. I got very ill, and they were back up and running. So I mean, it was amazing to show up and see all of the sets that were pre-built. Everything was like, I was like, wow, this is incredible. So it
Right.
was an adventure, and I'm so glad that they turned it down. And I can understand why, but I had absolutely nothing to lose.
Right.
So I wanted to go.
Well, I was so advantageous for you. I mean, being at the right place at the right time. And, most people have a romantic idea of filmmaking. Oh, they think working with the Hong Kong filmmakers, and let's say you're in Thailand. That sounds romantic to me. That sounds wonderful. I know what they said. Maybe you're filming a fight scene and they go, "Oh, you tired today? Why don't you go back to your trailer, get something to eat? We'll send the masseuse over there. Let us know when." No, that's not our life at all. It's take after take after take after take. It's pain. It's incredible because there's no SAG on set overseas,
No,
and you're actually making contact to the body a lot of the times, or all the time. So
absolutely.
it's tough.
Absolutely. And
What's
the thing is you gotta be ready for that. You gotta be ready to take, and that's why it was great, that I'd been training all that time. But you're right.
How long did your last fight scene last with
That was about
Vitalius?
that was about 2 weeks, I think. The same with Billy Blanks and King of the Kickboxers. It was about 2.5 weeks. But the thing is that, that they're not, they're gonna make sure that you're okay, but you got to be ready to go. And as you said, there is no trailer. There is no, they would bring our lunch out, for example, in that end fight set, and it would be this little, kind of little truck, dirty as all heck, a dirty soup tureen. And here's the soup you're going to get in a plastic bag. And then they're pouring it in there using coals to heat it up, some rice. And then the Chinese are saying, Lauren, you don't, sorry if I'm sorry to any Chinese people. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but literally the Cantonese accent is like that. But Lauren, you don't eat too much. You fighting after lunch, and I'm like, I can't eat this
Wow.
anyway. It's okay.
And how long would it be for the filming for per day? Let's say you're working two almost 3 weeks. You start at 9 in the morning. You end at what time?
No, not 9 in the morning. As soon as dawn breaks, there's light.
Right.
You're already there. You're in makeup, costume, and then you don't have extra costume, so you're taking off your clothes in front of everybody, switching with stunt guys if necessary. And then when the sun goes down, you're wrapped. And then they would work me on Sundays. They would do this and do that. And I mean, you just have to be physically in top
Right.
shape. And my body was conditioned for impact. Matthias, when I was kicking his arms, they would have to, after they yelled cut, he would just walk, oh, and his arms, as
Yeah.
big as they were, had swole up double its size, and they're spraying him with the stuff,
Wow.
dodging him or whatever. But there was no masseuse. There was no this. There was no, yes, I'll have some, this and that for lunch. You get what you get. And thank God Wang Li was
Wow.
there. He was like my mentor, and he is a guy who has made hundreds of Hong Kong films. We became good friends. Cynthia was terrific. Matthias was terrific. Max Thayer, who played my counterpart, he was amazing. And I'm just lucky that I did learn, as you said, to listen and react truthfully. And I still really have trouble, Keith, watching myself on film. I always am the hardest on myself, and I think you would say probably yourself as well.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right. How was it working with Cynthia? Did you recognize her talent when you were working with her? Is
Well,
she gonna go on to be just a megastar?
the thing is I'd seen her and Ernie Reyes Jr. and the West Coast demo team when I was fighting
Right.
humans, so I was just like, wow, that's amazing. And then here she is, and she's this huge star. She'd done all this stuff, and she was so sweet then. And she actually let me stay at her apartment when I had to get out of the Nathan Doe Hotel in Hong Kong, and because she wasn't there anyway. And so it was a really kind of a great scenario for me, and I was just so eager, and I just was very, very lucky, and I'm so
S
glad that it occurred the way it did.
Well, so you're calling it's a Corey Ewan. What do you call him? What's his
Yun
Chinese?
Yun Yun Kuei,
Yun Kuei. I got you.
right.
Well, anyway, I'm so envious and jealous in the best way possible that you got a chance to work with him because let me tell you why. He goes back to the golden age of Hong Kong, movie making.
Yeah,
I mean, we're talking Jet Li, and we're talking about all these phenomenal stars. Do you know that he is credited for kickstarting the careers of Michelle Yeoh and also, Cynthia Rothrock. Now think about that. Now, again, this Michelle just won the Golden Globes for her movie just, yeah, just recently. And she's up for Academy Award as well for this movie, Everywhere,
phenomenal.
Everything at All Times or whatever.
Yeah,
So just think, so he kickstarted their careers. Then he works with Jason Statham, Jet Li, Jackie Chan, Yong Bao, Sammo Hung. Oh, by the way, Lauren Avedon. Your name is mixed in with all those phenomenal people. Think that's your legacy.
wow,
So
that's
every martial artist would love to be able to say that, oh, by the way, I was trained and worked with and mentored by this guy. I mean, I'd love to say that myself. That's just incredible. So I'm glad he took you under your wing. And I think it shows in the rest of your films, the rest of your career, because you had that talent. You picked up the little, the subtle things that he taught you and reactions and techniques and the whole bit.
absolutely. And the stunt coordinator on the first Military No Surrender 2 was Geng Chu, was his Chinese name. Didn't speak any English. Yun Kuei didn't speak any English, and I've seen Yun Kuei. If you watch Enter the Dragon closely, his face is in there as a stunt person. And,
Oh, well,
but I didn't know anything about these guys. And I showed up to do it. And I think it worked to my advantage again that I didn't know the,
yeah,
the reputation of these people. But, I mean, for example, Lethal Weapon 4 Jet Li, Yoon Kuei did all of the second unit for the production. And Richard Donner is smart enough to just say, okay, set's yours, everything's yours, do it. And Jet comes
right,
off
right,
incredibly when he does Lethal
right.
4. I think that was his first introduction. And then as far as, Cynthia and all of these great actors and fighters and stunt people, uh, all I can say is it takes all of them. It takes a team, to make things work. And you've got to assimilate. And the thing is that first film and on all the films that I did, I would be asking questions. Okay, where are we picking up? Because they just say, stand here, Lauren, or whatever. What are we doing? Because, you're doing line reading basically because they don't shoot a master and then punch in and do this and that and the other. No, they just do,
Right.
they're going to do on the spot on the day where they're pointing, where they're lit, and, thank God we had 5 cameras, Panavision cameras on that, first film, and when it came to the romantic scene, and Yun Kuei was so wonderful, he said, "Lauren, how would you shoot this?" Wow, Babe in the Woods here, he wants to know how I would shoot it. I said, "I'd do a 50-50,
Wow.
so we can see the 2 of us, and then I'd have over the shoulders of her and me through the whole scene, so run all 3 cameras, ABC, at the same time," and that's how he shot it. And Roy Haran was really kind of a devil. He had put in that scene, for example, rotten tofu. a thing because I'm supposed to spit out the food. Well, I don't need to get sick and I don't need that to act. So I smelled it before I did it. I'm like, what do I
Ah,
you know? I said, "I can't do this." I
yeah,
said, "Put something in there." So when they come with all the cicada bugs and all this crazy stuff from Thailand, and, they played on that whole because, this was written for Kirk McKinney. So this kid, Scott Wilde, was from Indiana. But the whole deal is that we developed a rapport, and, I just became a part of the machine and part of the production, but I was always asking questions. "Where's my island? Where am I looking? What's the deal? How should I begin?" And then if I really
that's good.
effed up, I would ask to do it again or whatever, and they'd say, "Okay," or not. But like you said, they really just wanna focus on the action and they want you to sell
Right.
out. And man, I can't tell you how many times that God we were martial artists that I could see something was, and they won't let you block out here. You got to block here, here, and do all the reaction because that looks better.
Exactly.
And everything is done to
Right.
the T. They will not accept anything less than the best. So I'm so lucky, really.
Yeah, and I tell you what, working with the Hong Kong crews, the films I've worked on, they have an appreciation for kickers. They love to see long legs and kicks, and you think about all the Jackie Chan films. We had Bill Wallace and all these other people, Richard Norton on it, and all these people, guys. I don't even know who they were, but I went, "Who are these wonderful martial artists that can kick like this?" But they love the aesthetic beauty of the long legs and the spinning kicks and the whole bit. But the actual filming of them were so tough. The scenes are tough because there's no master shot, like you said. When I did my film with Jackie Chan, there was no script. And it's kind of funny because even our film, you see the Tony Leung when he's the stunt coordinator with his 10 kid, his little crew, they're putting the fight sequence together, the next 4 or 5 moves for us. They're putting it together and we're watching them. And as soon as they put it together, they walk over us and they go, "Here's what you're going to do." We shoot it. Then you go back over and they put another 3 or 4 techniques together. We shoot it, and very seldom do they allow you to say, I mean, do you want to be able to say, "I can't do that"? Because that's when they start doubling you in the whole bit. And you want to be on screen as much as you can. Now they double me more than, of course, they would double you. And half the time, I was kind of happy. Half the time, here's the thing. I was talking about that. You and I both had we were very fortunate. We both had our first film ever, get a theatrical release. So we're all over the country. Well, I did a film with Keith Strandberg. I co-produced a film with him called Blood Moon with Gary Daniels, who's phenomenal. One of the best kickers and actors. And, all these great guys like Scott Adkins and Darren Chevalier, they all come from England. A lot of them come from England. Well, anyway, here Gary Daniels comes to me and he says, "Keith," he says, "I've been to 20, 25 films. I've never had a theatrical release. You had yours in your first one like that." And he goes, "Also, here's what he said to me. He goes, "Can you talk with Tony Leung? Can you allow him in just one of my fight sequences where I hit somebody and the guy goes to the ground and stays on the ground?" Like some of these guys, they're so powerful projected on film
Mm,
because when they hit somebody, they're just, they're powerful.
yeah,
People believe what they see.
yeah,
That's why Jackie Chan always put people like us on film so he could beat the top people in the world in a whole bit.
that's
So
right.
anyway, I go to Tony Leon and I said, "Tony, can we have one scene with Gary Daniels fighting somebody where he hits him and he clutches him and the guy just lies down?" He goes, "No." I said, "Why not?" He goes, "Because you're thinking it about an American production. I'm making this for the Hong Kong audience. I'm making this for the world, even though it's all American actors."
Right,
He says, "We love the aesthetic beauty of the technique, not one punch, one kick."
right.
And I went, "Oh, I guess that's true." I'm thinking in terms of just American films. And again, we did No Retreat, No Surrender 3 together.
Right.
Tell the audience how you saved my fanny on the first or second day of rehearsals.
Well, it's about 4 days until we're starting to begin principal photography. And so the stuntman, Tony, by the way, who is, I think, one of the greatest. He's so cool. He speaks perfect English and so forth. So we're at this karate studio that only has a concrete floor with some, industrial carpet taped over it. And we're doing our little stunt audition. And you, my blood brother, do some double kick on the bag and you go and the bag spun a little bit and you went down, broke your arm. And you said, I remember, I think it's broken, and you'd never broken a bone, as I recall, before that, ever. Is that true?
Well, it wasn't only that, it was the fact that you did it
Oh,
first, and it was
what?
so beautiful. So you was
What?
a flying sidekick.
My fault. My fault.
Yeah, it's now my bone did bop come through the skin, and it was totally painful and had to be rushed to the hospital.
Right.
But no, you started it off. You're the culprit for all this, but go ahead.
Yes, I am the culprit because I've been doing 2-a-days and training for 6 months because I knew what to expect, and we
Right,
got it here in Florida. But the thing is that, Yunque, or not Yunque, excuse me, NG, and his name is NG for a good reason, which we both know. Um, the thing is that, he came to me and he said, "Loren, do you know anybody who can play your brother?" And I said, "No." And that meant because we'd already sat down together at the table. You remember that? For the 4 of
right,
us, NG, somebody else, you and I. And he had sent me some money because I turned down a film. And he said, "Loren, I'm taking that. I'm not paying you your full salary." I mean, this dude was brutal. And the thing about it is that no meant if you don't use Keith, I'm walking. And they got 3 days to go to principal photography. So you are so amazing, and I'm very loyal, and I'm not going to let them screw this up. I really am not because I don't want to work with anybody else. And so I was ready to pack my bags and slip out. So you had the chance to recover a little bit, and you did that whole film with still an arm that was healing. So they worked in the bank scene.
right,
You
right.
saving somebody, and I just have so much respect for you as because of what you were doing. Now I watched the part that I was saying that where you kind of wince after in Blood Brothers. That was after you kicked up and had I
Right,
think kicked Ryan Hunter or something like that, and then I can you visibly see you going "Ugh," because
right,
you had
right.
to the arm. And so the fact is that I wasn't going to do it without you, and that was it. They can
Well,
say
I
what
appreciate it.
they no,
No.
you don't have to thank me. Remember, I'm the culprit. So that's it. The thing
Well, let
about
me tell you, go
yes,
ahead.
yes, sir.
I was gonna say, let me backtrack a little bit. So we're at this John Pravat studio. I remember he's a friend of mine. He's a martial artist. So he's got a studio, and you're right. It's like something out of the caveman times. It has no carpet and just rock. It's like rocks and cement.
Yeah,
And there's a hanging bag, and you ran and did the most beautiful double sidekick I had ever seen. But there was a gentleman holding the bag.
yeah,
And so you hit the top of the bag and you bounced off because you got to bounce off the bag. Boom. And I went, wow. I think Tony says, Leon goes, you. So I go do it next. I run and I think you noticed there was somebody, no one holding the bag for me, but I
correct.
didn't notice.
Yeah,
So now I run, I do and it's the first time in my life I've ever done a double sidekick ever. I never even tried one at school. So I went off and I'm thinking that, oh, this looks pretty good. I touched the bag both with my feet up here.
yeah,
The bag sways. I drop like a ton of bricks. And when I dropped, I landed on my wrist and the bone popped out.
yeah.
And I just remember being in so much pain. I didn't realize what it looked like. I mean, I never saw that, of course, until I watched a clip of you on one of your films where you're kicking a bag or doing a double kick, and you actually do a double kick in one of your scenes. And as you do a double kick, you actually fall and land on your arms, but then you bounce back up and run. But I went, no, no, that's what happened to me. It looked like it was me dropping and falling because I said, so that's what it must have looked like. You had a scene in one of your movies just like it.
I just, I watched the because I got the biggest guy to hold the bag, and then he walked away, and I'm thinking, okay, I don't want to tell anybody what to do and whatever. And I thought, well,
Right, right,
Keith's gonna hit the bag because he's such an amazing athlete, and maybe he doesn't need anybody to hold the bag. But there it is. So, and it happened, and it happened, and we're still here. We did the film together, and but I was at that moment going, why did the dude walk away? When I'm having him hold the
right.
bag, for a reason. So the thing about it is we prevailed, and I wasn't going to do it without you, and that's that. So and
Well, I appreciate it.
yeah, well, no, it's my honor because really we are brothers, blood brothers, and you are
Right, right.
one of my heroes and idols. And, so that was going to be that. And, I wasn't going to allow them to take that away.
Well, it was a tough shoot for me because, 1, I was injured, and luckily, my good friend Keith Strandberg was the writer, producer, so he wrote the cast in,
Right.
and like you said in the opening scene, I get shot in the arm,
Mm.
and then they justified me having a cast the rest of the time, which was wonderful. But Double E was kinda hard because I wasn't comfortable, with the, director. I love Tony Leung, the fight
Oh,
coordinator.
yeah.
Man, they put together some of the best fight scenes of all time between you and I and all the other people. But
Agreed.
Lucas Lowe, he didn't speak English that well, and he didn't care about the acting. It was like you said earlier, do your lines and let's go to the fight. Do your line, let's go to the fight. If we want to do another line or whatever. And the thing is, it was kind of, when I see it, I kind of cringe sometimes. I go, I wish I could have done that scene 8 times more and developed it or whatever. But when it gets to the fight scenes, he's gone. Now we rely on Tony Leung, and oh my gosh, I've read and heard from people all over the world about the fight sequences, and out of all the films, I get some of the best compliments from that film because they put together some dynamic scenes. If you had to get, which ones are your 2 or 3 favorite fight scenes from that film?
Well, of course, the one that I remember you giving Strandberg heck. What does it take two of us to beat Ryan Hunter? But,
Right,
doing that fight with Mark Russo and, with Ryan Hunter, the end fight in No Retreat 3. And then the other one that's my favorite is the dojo fight, where I do
right, right.
all that stuff. And John Arthur was and your team, your guys from American Karate, they were so amazing. I remember they let one guy,
Jerry Prince, yeah, yeah,
yeah, they let him stay on. And, the thing about it is, and the bar fight. The bar fight sets the
yeah.
tone, and I had to do that split kick with a fan above and, one step. And I'm like, okay, I'm supposed to come from a bar stool and fly in the air. And I had to have them put a diamond in jeans, so that I don't crush
Right, right.
then my,
Yeah,
just like
Coney's.
this, yeah, cojones.
Good luck with it.
And so I had them pile up a bunch of sandbags so I could punch off of that. And that was that. So, the thing about it is I can remember Tony being off camera with a bald fist, and I had stuffed some cotton into my mouth, and then he's saying, "Lauren, we're friends, right? We're friends." I said, "Yes, of course we're friends, Tony. But when I turn into this punch and you really hit me in the face, please hit me right in the cheek where my teeth are, so that my jaw doesn't get broken or my cheek doesn't swell
Right,
up,
right,
all that stuff." But, they demand that of you. They want real contact, and we know the tricks, and we're not gonna tell them the tricks about, shall we say, getting hit in the face with, a shoe or a leg and all that. These are secrets that we'll save for movies than we do, you know? But, the fact of the matter is that you have to be ready to take that punishment. So those are my 3 from No Retreat
that's
3.
cool.
And, the thing about it is people don't know this, but it was like 120 degrees in that hangar
Oh,
in Florida.
it was
And here I am
awful.
on a scaffolding at the top of the thing where it was probably 135 degrees. And, so it just was what it was. It was just such a great experience. And I was 26, 25, however old. Took me 15 minutes to get out of bed in the morning. I'm not joking
Right, right,
because, I was so sore. And that's just the fact that comes with the territory. If you and for anybody who wants to get into the business, you better train up. I am so harsh on people. And when I watch films, my wife says, she knows I can't watch this because it's not done well. And people don't realize it, and that's fine. If it
right,
works, it works. But I wanted it to be excellent. They demanded that it be perfect and excellent. So,
right.
I'm so glad that we had that experience together. And, and Joseph Campanello was super. And yes, Lucas Lowe is a sadist. And, basically, I did that other film, King of the Kickboxers, with him. And let me tell you,
Oh,
wow, this dude he's nuts. He was nuts.
right,
And
right.
I don't know where he
A
came
little no
from.
A little Napoleon complex kind of a guy, little
Oh, my,
small guy. Yeah, just
on
want to
steroids.
exert his authority. Right,
On
right.
steroids, Napoleon complex.
Pleasure. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, please like it, share with some friends, and don't forget to subscribe and check out my other episodes. And then until then, ciao.